Your Food and Wine radio host are Ann Daw, former president of the Specialty Food Association and a longtime food executive who has held senior positions both here and abroad with Kraft Foods and Philip Morris. Don Mazzella, a nationally known business commentator. On each show, they invite leaders of the world's culinary and wine industries to share the secrets of their success. Visit us at foodandwineinsider.com.
You know, and we went to this fabulous show in Baltimore, and amongst the really interesting products we saw was beebella.buzz company. You know, and here to talk about it is Scott Haskins. He's one of the three founders of the company, and I just found it a fascinating company, and we had to have him on the show. And with that, I turn it over to you, Ann.
Thanks, Don. Well, again, we are here today with Scott Haskins of Bee Bella of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Welcome to Food and Wine Insider, Scott.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, thank you, Ann, for having me.
Scott, you're an electrical engineer by training. Tell us how you got into the beekeeping business in the first front with several of your friends, and then created Bee Bella.
Sure. So this was when I was finishing up college at Milwaukee. I was home for a summer, and John actually, one of the other co-founders, approached me about just kind of beekeeping for a summer, kind of as a hobby. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And his father was a beekeeper, so we kind of had some little expertise from him. But we did it for a summer, kind of for fun. And then the next winter, essentially, during my senior year, we built 100 beehives in my parents' barn loft, and kind of started that beekeeping journey from there. So that's the transition from kind of an electrical engineer, which I still am, but how I got into beekeeping.
Okay, and then where did the passion for protecting honeybees, because there's a piece of that's involved in why you also do the beekeeping, not just the hobby standpoint, but what you were seeing in terms of what's happening to the honeybee population.
Yeah, so, there's been plenty of news about, the colony collapse disorder that's, affecting the honeybees. And, part of the reason that we, wanted to do beekeeping in the area was, to help our local, ecosystem and, help it thrive. Initially, we do work with the USDA to give information to them about how our hives are doing, so that they have more data on what's happening to the honeybees, because it's still not 100% clear. And then as we've, grown our business and we're able to do this, we now donate some of our profits from selling the lip balm back to honeybee research at the University of Minnesota. And they're kind of at the leading front of, doing research on the honeybee epidemic.
Yes, I've actually read some of their research, and they've been working on, I think, actually some genetics that have to do with honeybees and trying to make them more strong in the environment, I guess. It's one thing to do bees and do the honey thing, but then you created Bee Bella. Tell us about that journey.
Sure, absolutely. So, so that kind of started from, we actually had a summer where we lost about half of our hives, and we were kind of struck with just like, wow, what are we going to do? And so we looked at, several different things. We're like, oh, well, we can turn the honey into mead and, sell it that way. And we weren't very good mead makers, so that didn't really work. But what we did take is the beeswax, and we found a recipe that was similar to Burt's Bees. Suzanne calls it out in one of her books, and that was kind of our starting point. And we talked to some professionals about what are some great ingredients to use for being a moisturizer for your lips. And so we kind of took that to heart, and we decided, well, if we're going to make a a lip balm, let's make the best lip balm possible. And so kind of how we came up with our ingredient list. But yeah, that's kind of how we started the lip balm. And then the packaging idea came from really we wanted to stand out on the shelf. We couldn't really just be another plastic tube. And so that's where our packaging, is a bamboo tube that's laser engraved that makes it a lot more than just a lip balm, but it makes like a very giftable type item as well.
Yeah, I think your packaging is quite beautiful and unique, and all lip balm seems to come in the same tube. You also thought about that. I would like you to talk a little bit about what makes you really different in that lip balm category, since there's an awful lot of products that are certainly on the market. There's other products that use beeswax. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, absolutely. So the big thing that really stands us apart is that packaging. We believe that, if you go into a store and just buy a regular lip balm, it's, just kind of for personal use or something like that. However, with ours, it's much more of a giftable type item, and they make great stocking stuffers. And, that packaging really kind of stands out in the eye. The second part is, if we're going to have a nice packaging, like I said, we want to spare no expense on the ingredients. So we use fair trade certified cocoa butter, fair trade certified coconut oil, argan nut oil, which is produced from a women's cooperative in Morocco, jojoba oil. So, a lot of these, products have like a good, have a cause behind them, really, especially with that coconut oil and the cocoa butter both being fair trade certified. So,
well, we're talking today.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
No,
sorry.
Go ahead.
No problem. Again, we're talking with Scott Haskins of Bee Bella of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. You and your partners brought your lots of competencies: accounting, finance, engineering, technology, biology, experience to Green Lake Kitchens, and within 6 months, manufacturing and packaging lip balms, which to me sounds really quick. Please talk about the relationship with Green Lake Kitchens. How do you work with them?
Sure. So Green Lake Kitchens is a kitchen cooperative where we are allowed to rent space from them. So for an hourly fee, we can go in there and rent a fully commercial kitchen that provides us with everything we need, so that we are FDA compliant with how we produce our product. And for a startup, they're great because otherwise, if we had to rent purchase a lease and furnish it ourselves all up to code, that for a startup it's very, very expensive. That large startup cost, and that can make it very daunting and difficult to start. I mean, this was we were founded by 3 kids that were essentially out of college, and cash flow wasn't in abundance when it came to starting your own business. So
tell me, how long do you think you'll continue the relationship with Green Lake Kitchens? Is there a certain size? If you get to that size, you really have to think about how else to produce it, whether it's at a contract packer or self-manufacturing. How are you thinking about that as you continue to grow?
Sure. Right now, as we think about growing all the lip balm by hand, and we can produce around like 10,000 in a weekend or so. But essentially, once we get to the point where we cannot keep up with that volume that's coming in, and we have to start actually getting physical machinery, I believe that's when we'll most likely switch over to leasing a place that we can hold all of our own machinery and stuff like that. But until that time comes, I mean, the Green Lake Kitchens offers a lot of headroom still, as we're able to get in there almost anytime we need to and produce a lot of lip balm in a short amount of time. Just with a little bit of engineering background I have and just process optimization, we've been able to kind of really optimize the time that we are spent in there. So,
Scott, you have two other partners. Tell us a little bit about how many people are involved in the business and what are the roles of each of you?
Sure, absolutely. So, James has a background in IT and a little bit of biology, and James kind of has managed a lot of the back end for shipping, receiving, and getting those orders, because we still fulfill all of our orders ourselves that come through the website. And then John has been great at reaching out and setting up for trade shows and talking to a lot of the larger customers like Whole Foods. And then myself, I've been part of building the website, a database on the back end, and a lot of the other little odds and ends building things that we've needed over the year, 2 years or so. Then we also have one employee, Kelly. She has kind of taken on the kind of like a customer service type role, and has been vital to our success in being able to follow up with retailers, seeing how inventory is going, and stuff like that.
I want to return to something you touched a little bit about earlier, which is, why you went to a co-op and trying not to invest too much in working capital, especially inventory and the whole area of capital investment in plant. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about how you've funded the business thus far.
Sure, absolutely. So the business has been funded by essentially the three founders have, we originally put in all of our own cash, and as we needed a little bit more capital after we've already kind of proven that we were selling the lip balm well and stuff like that, we actually reached out to the Oshkosh Economic Development Fund right in Oshkosh, and they were able to give us a grant along with a small loan to kind of just help boost sales and get ahead of inventory and stuff like that. And so that was very vital, because essentially the fund is all about helping local businesses in Oshkosh. So.
It's a really important point, because a lot of folks don't realize that there are economic development groups in their local communities, and people want to put people to work. Government wants to put people to work, and local communities want to do that as well. So it was really smart to do that. I want you to talk a little bit about your flavors, because when I looked online, I thought, wow, these are pretty unique. Please explain them and how many products are actually in the line.
Sure, absolutely. So our number one bestseller is going to be peppermint. We kind of consider that one the vanilla of lip balm when it's out there. And what makes that one kind of special is normally peppermint kind of has a natural tingle to it. We actually add a very, very, very small amount of capsaicin, which is a pepper extract to the lip balm, and that kind of extends the tingle. Something that we kind of, we talked to some of our consumers, and they what they liked about that peppermint was that tingling feeling. The other one was, Door County cherry, and Door County is in the northern section north of Green Bay in Wisconsin, and they're known for their cherries. So, for kind of like a home state advantage, where we started out, Door County cherry just kind of made sense to us. When we were starting the business, John actually rented a car and drove up to Door County and pulled the lip balm to retailers in Door County, stopping in and selling it that way. And then those were the first two that we started with. And then we were actually at a farmer's market where we wouldn't sell those two flavors. We would make different flavors each week and literally sample the audience of, well, what is the audience like? What is our consumers like? And that's where we came up with our pomegranate mango, which was a hot seller at the farmer's market. And that became like another year-round flavor. And then pumpkin spice was another one that everybody really liked. And that one's, it's great in the fall time. Everybody's kind of thinking about that pumpkin spice, especially with, the Starbucks and everything like that. And then candy cane is very similar to our peppermint. It's just our holiday version of it. It has candy canes on the top of the lid. Then we do have a lavender vanilla, which was another popular one at the farmer's market. After that, we also have tinted lip balms that we just released this summer. And so we came out with a rose red tinted and a pink tinted lip balm. And both of those don't really have a scent. It's just kind of like our base formula, but that does include the cocoa butter, which is one of our largest ingredients. And so it has a slightly chocolatey smell to it. So.
Wonderful. Well, we've been talking with Scott Haskins. He's of Bee Bella of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Scott, let's transition a little bit and talk about how you market your products. In general, sort of percentage terms, how much of the business is sold in stores versus online? And regards online, is it through your website or through online retailers like Amazon?
Sure. So I would say it is split around 80% through retailers and 20% straight, direct to customers through our website. We currently we went through a third party for our Amazon, and we decided to kind of pull back from that. We're going to be bringing that in-house, and I'll be managing that going forward. We'll start selling on Amazon direct to consumer, but the main part of our push of selling the lip balm and stuff like that has been to retailers, and we've done that through trade shows. So like you met us at Expo East in Baltimore. We've been to several others, including Expo West and a coffee trade show, along with the Atlanta Gift Mart. So
that's really smart. And where do you see the best positioning for your product at retail? Are you looking at, do you think coffee shops are the best way? Is it, your pharmacy type companies? Is it grocery stores? Is it specialty stores? Do you have sort of a strategy about what's the best location and place to really have your product displayed?
Sure. So we've both approached coffee shops because we found that those have done well in our area, and we're great right by the cash register because it's one of those add-on items. But at the same time, you can have that same type of add-on item, at a grocery store, and you have foot traffic of 1,000 times more than a coffee shop. So you may not have as high of a conversion rate at a grocery store as you would have a coffee shop, because you have a little more tailored market to the coffee shop consumer. You'll just sell more at a grocery store purely just because of the foot traffic. So we've been really kind of going after finding good boutique type grocery stores that kind of fit the brand image that that would fit with our mission at Bee Bella. People that are going to care about, they donate to honeybees, honeybee research, they use fair trade certified ingredients, they're Leaping Bunny certified, stuff like that. So we want to speak to our customers in that way.
I didn't ask you this earlier, but what's your pricing and how does that compare to the category?
Sure, absolutely. So our pricing is, you can get a 3-pack online for $15 or individually, pick it up for $6, $5.99, and our retailers are priced, our product similarly. And comparative to the market on a price per actual tube, we're a little bit more expensive, kind of like a premium. But what we often kind of tell our consumers is that on a price per gram basis, we're actually cheaper than some of the leading brands because we have just a larger tube in general. We actually hold 6 grams of lip balm compared to, I believe it's 4.2 grams is like what a normal lip balm would hold.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, today, I'm going to make a big assumption here. I'm assuming you're not using distributors. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we are actually, that was one of our big things that we learned in at Expo East is, how important distributors can be. And we actively were kind of trying to talk to them and understand that business. One of our kind of, short sides of all of our expertise backgrounds is we've never had to, in each of our industries we have outside of the Bellas, we don't have any experience in, working with distributors and stuff like that. So that has been something that we've had to kind of learn about. But we've done a pretty good job without them so far. But I think that's our next step for sure.
So would it be safe to say today you're essentially store door delivering? You're delivering yourselves directly to the store?
Yep. So we ship, they'll go online to our website and can place an order there through our wholesale portal, and we'll ship directly to store.
Is that many different smaller companies, they either use UPS or FedEx for that kind of service. Are you finding that they're the most efficient ways of shipping when you need to get them directly to a store? Or do you use some other service?
We're actually using USPS for all of our shipping needs, and partially that's because we also use Shopify for our website, and they have a great integration into USPS, and it's local to where we're at, so we can, a very convenient drop-off location. It has tracking information, so both from the consumer side, they get tracking information, they know where their package is, and then from our side, it very streamlined and integrated into our website back-end system. So it makes it very seamless for us.
Excellent. I don't want to lose time on this one, a very important question, because we haven't touched on it yet, is that you also have a very strong social consciousness about protecting bees. Please talk about the research and the work you support and what you feel has been accomplished through these efforts.
Sure, absolutely. So the big part that we've done is being able to we kind of realized that we can only help the local ecosystem by raising bees in the local environment, but being able to donate to the the University of Minnesota, it helps them do the research that we can't do, that we don't have the expertise to do. But along with that, we still do what we can, with working with the USDA, so that they can gather additional data about, what our hives are doing, and compare that with other hives in the nation/area, to understand, what are the rates of, what is the overall honeybee ecosystem doing, and how is it reacting to things that they're trying in the industry. And one of the things that we've also done is you can actually, there's different types of honeybees. So, you can determine that by the type of queen that you use. A lot of honeybees are Italian, and they actually experiment through genetics of with different types of breeds, and some breeds, are better suited to protect themselves against these varroa mites that kind of pester the honeybees. And so we've used those and given that data back to the U.S.
I know I am running out of time, but I did want to ask you one final question before turning it over to Don. What advice would you give to a budding entrepreneur about the blessings and the pitfalls of creating your own business?
Sure. So for that one, I would say partially, go out and do your research of everything, but at the same time, don't get caught up in overanalyzing. I think you can get caught up with, trying to figure out exactly what your target market is and stuff like that. But there's a little bit of just going out there and doing it and figuring it out for yourself. And that'll kind of develop as you get sales and stuff like that. So my advice is just at some point you have to take that leap and just do it. I think you can get caught up with the what ifs at some point. So.
Well, thank you, Scott. I had so many more questions I wanted to ask you, and I wish you the best of luck with it. I'm sure there'll be other things besides lip balm that you will do with your bees and your beeswax, but I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Scott, your website for our listeners?
Yep. So our website is www.beebella.buzz, and that is kind of spelt BEEBELLA.BUZZ.
Thank you so much for being with us. A link to that website will be on foodandwineinsider.com tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future Food and Wine Insider program. And you can also, by the way, tell us guests you'd like to hear on this program. Scott Haskins, thank you so much for joining us.
Ann and Don, thank you for having me.
To be successful, most restaurant owners require extra capital from time to time. When you need funding to renovate, buy equipment, or manage cash flow, you don't have time to track down financial statements or wait weeks for a decision. That's where Kabbage can help. Kabbage gives small businesses access to a line of credit of up to $200,000. Apply online and you'll get a decision right away. Since Kabbage is a line of credit, you can take the exact amount you need. You never have to reapply to take additional loans, and you'll only pay for the funds you use. Kabbage has helped more than 230,000 businesses from every industry, and with $4 billion in funding, Kabbage is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and was named the Forbes Top 100 Companies twice in a row. Check out Kabbage at kabbage.com/food and wine, and you'll get a $50 gift card when you qualify. That's kabbage.com/food and wine.
Line of credit is subject to credit approval. See terms and conditions. All Kabbage business loans are issued by Celtic Bank, a Utah chartered industrial bank, member FDIC.
And Italians have known about Mutti products for a generation. Now they are coming to the U.S. under the direction of Katia Facchetti, president of Mutti USA. Katia, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Don. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, you're really going to talk with Ann, and I turn the program over to Ann right now.
Thank you, Don. Again, Katia Facchetti is president of Mutti USA. It's a premium brand of canned tomatoes and bottled tomatoes, actually. Katia is a champion at turning businesses around, so I'm not surprised that she has taken on this role. Katia, for our audience, tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Mutti, a multi-generational Italian foods company.
I'm a classically trained consumer products marketer, but I grew up in a restaurant, and my dad's a French chef. And I actually have relatives in Italy. So I started my career to learn about marketing, and I love running businesses both for consumers as well as for food service. And interestingly, I lived in Parma for a year and attended a university there to study Italian food. So about 2 years ago, I was contacted by Mutti to determine the opportunity in the U.S. market for a authentic Italian brand. It's a fourth-generation family-led company. And given my roots, I needed to make sure that it was fabulous products. And it turns out that we have a significant opportunity in the United States. And my foodie nature and my culinary background, coupled with my consumer products training in companies like General Foods, Kraft, and Nabisco, as well as speaking Italian and having lived in Parma, where Mutti is based, turned out to be the perfect opportunity.
Wonderful. The Mutti brand, as Dawn was saying earlier, is well known in Italy, but not so much here in the U.S. What for you is the key to getting the consumer to think differently about the category and specifically about Mutti?
We learned that in the United States, we did a significant amount of consumer research as we formulated our plans for the United States. And we found out that fundamentally consumers believe that many canned foods, including canned tomatoes, are fundamentally dead. And the interesting thing about Mutti is the products are all about freshness. It's about preserving the freshness and the vibrancy of a perfectly ripe, fresh tomato from the Italian fields and that sense of Italian summer. And so when we talk to consumers, we found that changing their mind about consumers do not ever think about tasting a tomato from a can. It's something dead. It's something that you need to cook for a long time to add flavor is really the history of how Americans perceive canned tomatoes specifically. So when we talk to them about tasting it and the fact that the tomatoes taste just like a fresh tomato in the can, they have no additives, no preservatives, and essentially just a pinch of Mediterranean sea salt, it really was a disruptive idea, and the products really deliver. We went on to actually do blind consumer taste testing to determine whether or not, what we believed was actually true on a fact base, and we did find out that Mutti products do win when consumers taste them blind versus their favorite product. So that was really something that allowed us to believe that we could disrupt the category and help consumers understand why a product such as Mutti, which has become the number one brand in Italy and in Europe, could be suitable for the U.S. market.
And how do you now communicate that when the product is on the shelf and you don't have the opportunity to sort of get people to all sample this fabulous product?
Definitely one of those marketing challenges for sure. So we're doing a variety of things. We're doing in-store shelf talkers that talk about taste so fresh, try it straight from the can. We are doing in-store demos. We're doing a significant amount of social media, and we're going out and filming consumers tasting it out of the can and getting the reactions and putting that on Instagram and Facebook, for example. We actually just launched our first national advertising campaign, Taste an Italian Summer, straight out of the can. It appeared in Bon Appetit's October issue, and we'll be continuing with those types of approaches going into January and March of next year.
I want to return to the marketing, but one of the things that impressed me in the literature that I had read is that Mutti has some very high standards and works with over 300 farmers with some extraordinary standards. They have the Pomodoro d'Oro Award, the Golden Tomato Quality Award to farmers. Can you talk about this relationship with the farmer and what it means to the quality of the tomatoes used in the Mutti product?
This is a topic I could talk about for a long time, so let me start on it. It is absolutely critical to the finished product to make sure that we are getting absolutely the best tomatoes. I like to talk about Francesco Mutti, who's my boss, as being relentlessly unsatisfied because he feels like there's always an opportunity to do better. Francesco took a completely different approach about 20 years ago. The Italian tomato market was really driven by farmer co-ops It was a very commodity, non-branded business. And he decided that by getting better tomatoes, he could create a better product. And he actually took the approach of paying more to get the best tomatoes. So as part of that, he started looking at how he could select the farmers that were willing and able to grow the absolutely best tomatoes. And so in the Parma region, essentially from Parma to the Adriatic Sea, is where most of the tomatoes in Italy are grown. And there's about 4,000 farmers in that area. Mutti only works with about the top 350 or so of those farmers. Each farmer is rigorously selected to make sure that they will comply with sustainability requirements in terms of water usage, biodiversity, crop rotation, minimal, if any, pesticide use, only really in times of really extreme circumstances, seed selection, soil selection. The farmers are then selected, and they are given a list of, it's about 20 attributes that are tested throughout the process during the growing period when the tomatoes are delivered as well as when they are processed. All the farmers with whom Mutti works are essentially evaluated on this scorecard of over 20 attributes. And those attributes include things like pH, sugar levels, solids levels, degree of ripeness when they're delivered, brown spots, yellow spots, any damage, amount of dirt in the delivery to the factory. And they work with those farmers, and those farmers at the end of the season, after all those deliveries, are evaluated on their scorecard, and they're invited, as you mentioned, to the Pomodorino d'Oro event. And fundamentally, it's the Academy Awards for tomato farmers. So not only does Mutti pay more, about 10% on average, greater than market, for the tomatoes that are approved and allowed to be processed, but for the people that are considered the top tomato farmers, they also get an additional bonus back to pound one on those tomatoes that they delivered. And if they're in the top 3 farmers, they are featured on packaging. They're featured on the equivalents of the New York Times and Wall Street Journal in Italy, full-page ads, recognizing their contributions to creating absolutely the best tomatoes.
Again, we're speaking with Katia Facchetti. She's president of Mutti USA. I'd like to now return back to the brand and your packaging. It says Solo Pomodoro, and it says Parma on the label with 2 lions in the crest. Talk a little bit about the packaging and the design and what it actually represents and says about the product.
So Mutti was founded in 1899. It is a 4th-generation family-led company, and it is just about the heart and the passion of the people in Parma. And it's interesting, I was speaking with Francesco Mutti, and I asked him if he could ever, work on any other vegetable. And he looked at me like I was quite odd when I asked him that question, because for him and his family, tomatoes have been their life the entire time. Thing is that there really is no clear understanding on where the lions in the logo came from. So even when I asked Francesco where the lions came from, he actually doesn't know who in his family lineage picked the lions and why they picked the lions. I mean, for me, lions are the symbol of Venice, and they're the open lions, which are about education and quality. Lions aren't really particularly part of the Parma history, but for consumers in the United States, having that logo with the lions on the packaging, they clearly recognize that it's an Italian product. But the story of the lions is actually a mystery to this day.
And the product is all packed in Parma, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes, we pack, most of the products are packed in a town called Monte Chiarugolo, which is just outside of Parma's borders. But we also have a facility in Fior d'Agosto, which is in Campania, where we process cherry tomatoes and whole peeled tomatoes, because those are where those are grown. Because our goal is to have our factories as close to where the farmers are so that we can go from field to can as quickly as possible.
And do you think that the fact that it's made in Italy and imported has any impression on an American consumer as you're trying to build the brand here?
What a fascinating question. So definitely consumers, when you speak with them, they know Italians, know their tomatoes. So the fact that they're Italian tomatoes really makes a difference, because for them it feels like it's the land of tomato expertise, and that Italian consumers know the best tomatoes because it's such a part of the Italian cuisine. In the U.S. market, the interesting thing is about 40% of the SKUs on shelf are what we call Italian sounding. And consumers look at them, and they appear to be Italian, but actually aren't tomatoes from Italy, aren't actually produced in Italy, and actually lead to a tremendous amount of consumer confusion. So in the American market, yes, Americans absolutely are drawn and attracted to Italian tomatoes, but there's a tremendous amount of confusion in the category on what actually is grown and produced in Italy.
I think there's a lot of truth to what you were saying about the misconception of canned tomatoes, and I suspect some people think of it as a commodity, and when you go down that particular aisle, it always seems like someone is selling something on sale, and so your ability to break out as a premium product has to be quite a challenge. What are you seeing, and what do you think you need to do with the shelf level?
All good questions. At the shelf level, we really need to stand out. I mean, it's a category with over 1,000 SKUs on average. Consumers are completely overwhelmed by the choices. You're exactly right. There's always something on sale. There's a tremendous amount of private label out there. And I think nobody's really communicated to consumers that there is a difference. And most consumers have never taken two different cans of tomatoes and tried them side by side, or even opened them side by side. They just don't have this cognizance that there can be a difference. So number one, we've just updated all our packaging to be more relevant to the U.S. market. It's designs that will definitely pop at shelf. They look different than everybody else. We're really trying to capture the energy of tomatoes. When we talk tomatoes, we do talk tomatoes, but when we talk to consumers, when you cook with tomatoes, it's a messy process, right? There's tomatoes. If you make a tomato sauce, it always splashes on the stove. People are always splashing it on their clothing. I mean, cooking with tomatoes is messy, and we're trying to capture that authentic messiness. And so you'll see in our new packaging that there's splashes of the tomato product on the label. The labels have a tremendous amount of energy, are brightly colored, and don't look like, what we would consider the, classic Italian matron style packaging or, beautiful tomatoes that are perfectly clean. We want to capture the messiness, energy, and sense of vitality that tomatoes really have. So we're trying to do that to stand out on shelf. We think that will help. Doing in-store programs with shelf talkers and the like, we think will help. But interestingly, with the trend that consumers really care about ingredients, this is something to help them understand that there is such a huge difference. Can I talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, please go right ahead.
One of the things that I thought was just absolutely fascinating is somebody zapped me a link to a Jimmy Kimmel Dax Shepard interview, a podcast from earlier this year. And Jimmy Kimmel goes on this whole rant about his marinara sauce. And he said it's the one dish where the primary ingredient, nobody talks about it. He talks about, nobody ever talks about the tomatoes. He goes, your marinara sauce is mostly tomatoes. People talk about the olive oil, they talk about the basil, they might talk about the oregano or other ingredients they put in their marinara sauce. He said, nobody talks about the tomatoes. And so he did this whole riff on the subject, which I think is exactly it. When I go to restaurants these days and you see pizza on the menu, and a lot of times you'll see made with a particular farm's, mozzarella cheese, or even sometimes they list the flour type. Rarely do you see anybody talking about the brand or type of tomatoes. I mean, once in a while you'll see San Marzano tomatoes listed, but it's this ingredient that is so critical to so many dishes in American cuisine, Italian-American cuisine, South American cuisine, Mexican cuisine. It's an absolutely critical ingredient, and nobody's really brought the story of how that ingredient changes the dishes that you make.
We've been talking with Katia Facchetti, who's president of Mutti USA, a premium brand of canned tomatoes. Katia, what you're saying is so correct. You look at consumers' taste palette. One of them is tomato, one is butter. There are certain basic sort of taste profiles in the palate. I was wondering, given your experience with large consumer packaged goods companies and your consulting, do you look to other sort of case studies on other brands that have changed the perception of the category? One of the ones I was thinking specifically about is Rao's, a premium pasta sauce, which positioned their brand at $8.99 a jar when the market was really at $3.99 a jar on the basis of premium ingredients. Is there a case study or a business study that you say, if they could do it in that category, why can't I do it in this category?
I don't think there's one particular case study that I really refer to. I think Rao's is an excellent example. I go back all the way to the days of when, Purdue branded chicken and things that used to be considered commodity products that have really changed. And I look at all those examples to see, and I challenge myself every day on, what does it take to be better and different? And I think the tough thing is it's such a huge fragmented category, and bringing that to the market. And just like you and I know, it's like looking at what happened in the coffee market is another thing that I look at a lot. And, how did coffee become premium? How did Starbucks start charging such a significant amount when coffee was in such a decline? And how do you create something that not only is about the quality and the ingredient, but the experience that the consumer has? And I think Mutti has the opportunity to bring that. And, I want to let tomatoes escape from the can, so to speak, and really jump into consumers' lives and, their dishes, so to speak.
Now, you're here in the U.S., and the family is in Italy. What's the challenges of being sure that the things that you're doing and you're trying to make happen here in the U.S. and the communications with them in terms of, I guess they ultimately sort of approve what you're doing. How does that work when you're here and the base business is over in Italy?
I think it's a challenge. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you start with everything from language challenges to time zone challenges, and really an understanding of cultures. I mean, when I went to Italy, one of the things that was really critical when I first started was I went and did store checks in Italy. And when you look at the category in Italy, there's really only 3 to 4 brands and private label, and that's it. And so when they think about the category and what it takes, either for a packaging standpoint or communication standpoint, the difference in complexity in the United States is enormous. It's absolutely enormous. And when you talk about a company based in Parma, that's been there for over 120 years, and they're very Italian-centric. And so the good news is I have lived in Parma, so that helps a lot. My Italian is basically functional, although I've now learned how to speak HR Italian, accounting Italian, and now I'm learning supply chain Italian, as opposed to, I'd like to have a glass of wine with dinner. The cultural challenges are significant. The requirements for accounting in Italy in some ways are much more scary than our U.S. GAAP requirements. Supply chain, I have learned so much about logistics and how you get products from Italy to the United States and how do you do that efficiently and effectively. Trying to understand the Italian culture and how that means we communicate and where those borders are. I spend a lot of time trying to channel Francesco Mutti and think about how is he going to look at this. And, he was really an innovator in how he changed the category in Italy. And how do I do that in the same way and have this commitment to premiumness in a market, as you mentioned, that is very price and commodity driven? And it's a learning experience. We have tremendous leeway from Francesco. He believes in our ability to conquer the U.S. market and translate the brand and the business appropriately for America while maintaining the Italianicity of the brand, but it's definitely something that is a process every single day in every single thing that we do.
Now, in one of the articles that I read, I believe Mutti is also a premium brand in Italy, and Italy isn't a high disposable income country, but I think consumers pay 25 to 30% more for Mutti. How will the brand be positioned from a pricing standpoint here in the U.S.?
Our goal is to have the same type of premiumness. So our goal is to be about 25% more than comparable quality brands. We believe that works today. Looking at some of our retail data, we're achieving that type of price premiumness, and our sales are growing rapidly. So we're achieving our growth goals with that premium pricing. And we do find, just like what happened to me, once you try Mutti, people become incredibly loyal. It's very hard for them to switch back to whatever tomato they may have been using before. And I think that's the same thing that happened in Italy and allows them to charge that. The quality of the product, the consistency of the product, and the difference it makes once you try it, and fundamentally for consumers in the United States where we have more disposable personal income and we're willing to spend on ingredients that are better and different, it's really just a few cents more per can. So we're taking the same strategy that Italy was so successful with.
There's lots of regions in Italy with their interesting differences in terms of both culture and food and so on. In the U.S., the market, it's not one market. There's the Northeast, there's California, there's the Midwest, there's all these different parts of the U.S. where Italian foods probably have some high indexes and where they have some maybe relatively, at the 100 level indices. Do you have a strategy for what markets or what submarkets you're attacking first to get the foothold and to build the scale for the business here in the U.S.?
So, interesting question, because most Italian specialty manufacturers have certain rules of thumb that they believe apply to the U.S. market. So when I started, somebody said to me, Katia, you really need to only focus on the East Coast, Chicago, and parts of the West Coast. That's it, because essentially nobody in the South buys specialty Italian ingredients. However, that does not align with the data. So we did a significant amount of data analysis. We do tremendously well in Texas with H-E-B and Central Market as an example. We're doing very well in some key markets in Florida. We just got great distribution in the Carolinas with Lowe's. So although we do really focus on essentially the Northeast, Chicago, and California, the opportunity is huge, pretty much in most markets in the country. We did a test last year with Rouse's in New Orleans and Schnucks in St. Louis. The products did so well that they took them on as permanent items. So I think there's a little bit of mythology that isn't borne out by the data. Mm-hmm. So we do have some degree of focus, but we find that this is such a staple item in consumers' pantries. I think the category has over 80% household penetration. People are using tomatoes all over the country for all different cuisines, that it's not just limited to key markets that are perceived to be strong Italian specialty or Italian American markets.
I think that's absolutely critical, and I'm so glad you addressed that question. Again, we've been speaking with Katia Facchetti. She's president of Mutti USA. I'd like to know a little bit about, or I'm sure our listeners would like to know a little bit more about the role of supermarkets versus specialty stores in the success of the brand. Do you have a strategy for your channels? What channels you're approaching first, or just talk to that a little bit.
Absolutely. So everything that I've learned in my career, it's about the consumer first. And so we spend a lot of time understanding how consumers shop the category. And at this point in time, as we talked about, it's pretty much a commodity-based category. Consumers don't know the difference. Therefore, the key becomes we need to be available when, where, and how consumers shop. So some people are like, oh, just focus on specialty. Well, that's fine, but people are not going to make a special trip to get the tomato of choice, even if they love it, at a different store. So we need to be available where consumers shop. So therefore, specialty, mainstream grocery, e-commerce, wherever we think consumers are shopping is where we're going to be.
And talk a little bit about online versus retail. How much of the business is sold online versus sold in storefronts today?
I don't know that for the category. I mean, generally for most canned goods, the data I have show that, canned groceries is only about 10% online, whereas some other categories are well over 25, 30, 40% online. I still think there's a consumer behavior of, deciding what you're going to have for dinner pretty close to the time that you're having it, whether it's on Monday for Wednesday night or it's on Monday for Monday night. And so I still think there's a certain sense of immediacy in going to the grocery store. We're definitely seeing, millennials are shopping in grocery stores. Not everybody is doing online. Not everybody is getting their food delivered. However, if you are an ingredient, we're seeing our Amazon sales grow significantly right now. And I think it's because we don't have distribution everywhere. People do want to get it. Obviously, it's a food with long shelf life, so you can buy cans of tomatoes and stock them in your pantry if you need to. But I can't exactly speak to the category numbers of online versus in-store. I think online definitely plays a role, particularly when distribution is limited.
Katia, I was actually thinking more about Mutti in terms of how are you growing the business and how much are you seeing today as percent retail versus online for the Mutti brand?
We just became an Amazon seller only a couple months ago. So we are just growing super fast, and frankly, we can't stay in stock on Amazon at the moment. So our numbers on Amazon and other e-commerce sites like FreshDirect and Jet.com are still small, but growing at an extremely rapid rate.
I'd love for you to just for a minute talk a little bit about because of your experiences, what you think the Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods means for the grocery industry.
That's a great question that everybody wants to know the answer to. I think they're really going through a process. Like most acquisitions, I always think about what was the reason why they bought them and what was core to the company. And Whole Foods was really about these, trying to bring more local and regional products to the market from smaller producers and less mass-produced and things like that. And some of the first things that Amazon tried with Whole Foods was actually to make things more consistent across the country, which led to quite a bit of issues from a shopper perspective. So now I think they're backtracking and they're still trying to figure out, who they are and what they want to be. With the power of Amazon, I think they absolutely do have the ability to continue the strategy of making more local, smaller products available. And interestingly, some of the new Amazon ads are about that they feature small and local producers of things, even for, non-grocery items. So I think they're learning from Whole Foods. I think it's going to increase their ability to help small producers bring their products to market. But I think it really remains to be seen how that's really going to revolutionize the industry. I think they're still feeling their way through the acquisition.
Well, Katia, you answered not only my current question, but the future question. I really appreciate hearing that about some of the products that you plan to bring to the marketplace. And, when I listen to you speak about the products, you have this great passion about what is being provided. And I think you're totally right on in terms of what the consumer is looking for. They really want to know about the products. They want to know the people behind the products. They want to know where the product is coming from. And Mutti certainly has quite the distinction, and I can't imagine it wouldn't be successful under your leadership. I think we're out of time, so I'm going to turn it back to Dawn.
We've been talking with Katia Facchetti of Mutti. Katia, your website, if people want to buy your product, know more, etc.?
Absolutely. So where you would look for more information is www.madewithmutti.com, and that's Mutti, M-U-T-T-I, madewithmutti.com. On that site, you can find some recipes. You can learn more about the product, and we do have a store locator, which makes it much easier to find Mutti in an area near you, or look for it on Amazon.com, or our partner, Italy.com, carries all Mutti items in the United States.
A link to your website will be on foodandwineinsider.com tonight, where you can hear this and every other past and future Food and Wine Insider program, and you can tell us a guest you'd like to hear.
You've been listening to Food and Wine Insider with Ann Daw and Don Mazzella. Want to join us on a future show? Contact us at foodandwineinsider.com. Until next time, have a passion for food, wine, and profits, and think of our program, Food and Wine Insider.